Hi, Simon Chappell here. I'm the Quit Alcohol Coach. Today I wanted to talk about the link between trauma, particularly when we're children, and addiction, particularly with alcohol, which is what happened to me. When we suffer trauma when we're younger, it can leave us unstable, especially if it's unresolved. And it's a form of PTSD, Postraumatic Stress Disorder. Now, over the years, that can manifest itself in a whole number of different ways. It can impact sleep, it can cause heightened anxiety, it can make us worry about things, we can have irrational fears, and if it's left unresolved, it can kind of fester away and get worse and worse. And that's what happened for me. And I wanted to share a little bit about my own story and how that led me down a path of addiction where I was self-medicating without even realising it, around some trauma that I suffered. And I had additional complications going on too. There were mental health issues with ADHD and the symptoms, the traits that come with that. And again, I was self-medicating without even realising it and trying to deal with the hyperactive behaviour, the impulsivity, the hyper-focus where I would get fixated with something and wouldn't be able to let it go. Again, I didn't realise that I had adult ADHD until I quit drinking. Thankfully, when I did, I was able to shine a light on it and I was able to deal with it. But more recently, I've been exploring my childhood trauma and joined the dots up. I realised that actually this is something that happened to me that led me down this path to addiction. So for me, when I was about 13, I was friends with an older boy near where I lived. He was about 19 and we were really good friends. I looked up to him and sadly he took sexual advantage of me, sexually abused me, whatever you want to call it. And this is a really hard video for me to make. I'm kind of feeling a little bit emotional right now. I've been wanting to talk about it for a very long time and haven't been able to find the strength to do so. I've been talking about it openly more recently with a few people, and I found that every time I did talk about it, it was as if I claimed some of the strength back. So if you've suffered some kind of trauma, maybe just talking about it and sharing it is something that's going to work for you. Doesn't work for everybody, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but I've definitely found that that's enabled me to feel like I'm claiming some of the power back in this. I'm having that back, thank you very much. And not long after this happened, I was young at the time. All I wanted to do was ride my bike and play video games. I thought that we were friends and I kind of thought this was a normal thing. And I sort of moved on from it fairly quickly and just assumed, well, I kind of took part in it. Obviously, there was an element of grooming and coercing to get me involved, but I thought, well, I'd done it, so it was my doing, it was my decision. And I just put it to the back of my mind, not realising the impact that it had actually had on me. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, maybe less than that, I started to dabble in drugs. I was smoking weed, I was taking speed and things like that for probably 18 months, maybe longer than that afterwards. And I never ever stopped and joined the dots up. It was really relatively soon after that event had happened. And at the same time, of course, I was experimenting with alcohol, and that took me down a slippery slope, which eventually almost ruined my life. And you've probably seen some of my other videos and you've seen some of the things that went on with alcohol and you've heard my story. But I've really now got to grips with the fact that that trauma definitely played a part in it. And on top of the sexual abuse, when I was around 2 years old, my biological father walked out on my mum and I and left me with what has been described as abandonment issues, this fear of being left on my own. I thought, well, hang on, I was only 2 years old. How could that possibly affect me? But I'm assured by the people who know these things that absolutely it does. You soak it all up like a sponge, even at that early age. And you see and digest everything that's going on around you. And that would absolutely have caused issues for me around a fear of being left alone, a fear of people dropping me from their lives. And again, joining up the dots has a part to play and was another form of trauma. And the expert I was speaking to about it very much said to me that is PTSD. It's a trauma-based childhood issue that is PTSD, and you're still affected by it, even right up until now, because I've never ever dealt with it. I've never really spoken about it. The abandonment issue with my biological father, I've never even thought it was a problem. So the point I'm trying to make is I'm not an expert on this particular topic. I wanted to share my own experience, my own story, and know that, yeah, I've joined some dots up here and realised that there were a couple of traumas in my life when I was very, very young and when I was in my teenage years that I believed steered me towards a path of self-medication, combined with ADHD on top as well. And I think it's important to actually get some clarity on this, because if I'd heard this video at the time I quit drinking or when I was drinking heavily, I think I would have started really writing down a timeline of my life and looking at those kind of events to see, hang on, is there anything that's happened? Where can I join up the dots here? And then maybe I could have sought some professional help. But my journey has been that actually I quit alcohol. That allowed me to find a place of relative peace and happiness and calm in my life. And then I've started looking back at these things, and then I've started joining up the dots and asking myself why. What was it that led me to drink so much, to get addicted to this substance, to self-medicate? And now it all seems incredibly clear. What is wonderful is that I'm now in a place where I can actually address any issues that are still lingering around. I can do something about it. I can put some work in from a place of strength, from a place where I feel grounded and at peace in my life. So that's a wonderful thing, and I'm looking forward to that journey. And hopefully just by talking about it, it might enable some other people to reach out or open up about things that might have happened to them, or even just make them explore things on their own life timeline to work out where and when and why they might have been steered down a path to self-medicating. And I do think that really is important. It's almost like solving a jigsaw puzzle. And for me, I feel like I've just found a couple of really important pieces. Maybe they were the missing pieces, and I'm glad I worked it out for myself, and I feel happy about it. And I don't feel any shame in any of those things. As you know, I feel no shame in sobriety. I'm the opposite. I'm really proud about being alcohol free and proud of my sober lifestyle, and the same with ADHD. So there's no shame in any of this, but everybody's different, and some people do feel shame. Some people are worried about what people will think of them or how it will work out, and might tell themselves stories about that. But I want you to know that certainly if you want to reach out to me, I'm absolutely a safe space, as are the communities that I run too. So there is and are safe spaces available for anybody who needs them. And I actually read online that 50 to 60% of people who suffer childhood trauma go on to get addicted to one substance or another, or multiple substances. That is a huge number. There's a massive, massive link. You probably don't need me to tell you that. But what I needed to be told, I think, when I was still drinking or at the time I quit, was look at this. Go and look. What does your timeline look like? What might it be that was the catalyst, that was the thing that sent you on this path, on this journey of almost self-destruction? And I think that's so important, because it can go on. The PTSD is not resolved for me. I need to now put some work into that. It can affect relationships, careers, self-esteem, mental health. Just about everything you can think of can be impacted in so many varying different ways if we don't do something about it. Now, everything I've read about dealing with PTSD is psychotherapy, talking to an expert and getting an expert plan of action to really work through it and unpackage it, unwrap it in a very safe and gentle way. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to address it and I'm going to deal with it. But I wanted to share, and I really wanted to say, if you feel there was or has been trauma in your life and you're wondering, well, why do I drink? Why can't I let this substance go? maybe joining up the dots is going to be that step that you need to take to start thinking, aha, this is now making sense. And I don't want to be defined by that. I don't want to be addicted to this substance. I want to break free. And then you can start putting in the work to really break free. It's important to note that the best way of doing that is to quit alcohol first, then do the therapy work that you need to do around trauma and PTSD. Doing it the other way round, I've been assured by people who know what they're talking about, doing it the other way round is not the right way to go about it, because you're still in the grip of addiction and you're not going to be in a good place to really comfortably deal with a PTSD issue. So you're far, far better work on quitting alcohol, get yourself in a place where you feel comfortable, at peace in your life, then do the work on the trauma. And I've kind of just stumbled upon this, thankfully, in the right way, and I've kind of worked it out for myself. But hopefully what I've learned, even if it just helps one person, to be able to recognise that, to feel like they've got a plan, right? Yes, I've had trauma, now I'm going to quit the booze, and then I'm going to work on putting that straight as well. And it's going to allow you to become the best version of yourself. See it like a caterpillar transforming into a wonderful, beautiful butterfly. And sure, we have to do a bit of learning on that journey to change, and there can be bumps in the road, there can be tears, there can be tough stuff that comes up. Like I say, this video is not easy for me to make. I feel really emotional talking right now. And I didn't tell anyone about this until I was 40 years old. I know you don't think I'm 40 years old, but it's true. You know, I am over 40. Can you believe that? It's because I don't drink, right? No. But I didn't tell anyone about that until I was 40 years old. And even up until the moment I'm recording this video, the number of people I've shared that with is less than double figures. Like only 9 people know about it. Yet now I feel that the right thing to do, the thing I want to do, is talk openly and be able to share it and take the power back, feel like that I own it rather than something owning me or having a level of control over me. And maybe that comes from my controlling nature with certain things. Who knows? Again, I'm not a psychotherapist, but what I do know is I feel better already just by sharing it. And feel free to comment, feel free to post your own experiences, or if you feel safer doing so, send me a private message. That's absolutely fine. But I want to make sure that everyone is joining up their own dots and can look back with a kind of top-down view on their life and think, yeah, they're the points, they're the moments, they're the things that I need to now deal with once I'm free from the grip of alcohol. And it's an important thing to do. We need to put the work in. And if you've already put the work in on quitting drinking, first of all, well done. But second of all, you might still be hanging on to some kind of child trauma or trauma that's happened in later life that you need to look at, and you need to put some work in to get that really straightened out so that you can move forward and really, truly be the best version of yourself.